Rustle, rustle, rustle. The golden light seemed like a miracle, infinitely extending the broken bridge. Covered in blood, Lin Chia stood in the light holding his sword hilt, with endless noise echoing in his ears. The radiance of the rainbow bridge obscured his vision. Both Hela at the other end of the bridge and the Norse gods standing in the sky gradually disappeared before his eyes, leaving only a fading glow. The rainbow bridge had opened. Lin Chia glanced at the walkie-talkie at his waist, helplessly released his hands from the sword hilt, and let out a long sigh. Regardless, he had finally completed the missions which Qing had given him. Even if subsequent developments might be extremely unfavorable to him, even if he might perish alone under the siege of the gods, he had no regrets. He wondered if Si Xiaonan's side would succeed. As the light gradually faded, his vision returned. On the familiar rainbow bridge, the Stygian abyss surged forth like a towering tidal wave, devouring all his light. The enraged Hela moved like lightning, carrying terrifying divine might as she tore through space, charging straight toward Lin Chia. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, glanced back at the bridge surface gradually forming from light, and a look of acceptance appeared in his eyes. Nightfall, squad member Lin Chia, mission complete, he murmured in a voice only he could hear. Clang. He drew white slash from the ground, gripped the Kusanagi sword in his hand, and his faltering body took a step forward, standing in front of the holy rainbow sword. He took a deep breath, mobilizing his last bit of spiritual power, his eyes flashing with the intent to fight to the death. At this point he had no room to maneuver. All he could do was buy a little more time for the Rainbow Bridge's existence. Even if just a few seconds. Just as Lin Chia was hunching over, preparing for a final death battle with Hela, a gray shadow seemingly crossed the river of time, flying out from behind him at an incomprehensible speed. In an instant, everything around seemed to slow down. Floating dust particles froze in the air, ripples in blood pools stopped in concentric circles, and the Norse gods in the sky seemed caught in a time fracture, motionless like statues. The gentle breeze from Lin Chia's clothes hadn't even risen before it was caught in the whirlwind of a single person's movement, creating a crack in the swirling Stygian death energy. An elderly figure in gray clothes with white hair appeared before the Stygian abyss. The snow-white long blade at his waist slowly unsheathed. Brilliant blade light cut through the Stygian death energy, colliding with Hela who was charging like lightning. An earth-shattering boom erupted from the middle of the rainbow bridge, the gust nearly blowing Lin Chia's injured form off the bridge. He shielded his face with his elbow, his pupils contracting involuntarily as he stared in shock at the gray-clothed, white-haired figure. That was... boom. The gray figure's long blade deflected Hela's form, and both retreated several steps. Seeing his face, Hela's expression changed dramatically, filled with disbelief. A human. Cough, 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 cough. The gray figure bent slightly while holding his blade, coughing violently, his silver-white hair floating gently. After taking a deep breath, he weakly spoke. Former Mask Squad Captain, Humanity's Sealing of the Great Xia, Wang Mian, greets the Queen of the Underworld. Wang Mian's voice was weak and he spoke slowly, but somehow, a piercing, killing intent emanated from his words. Wang Mian. Hearing this familiar voice, unprecedented light appeared in Lin Chia's eyes. Wang Mian. Lin Chia stood before the holy rainbow sword, calling out anxiously, "Why are you here? How is Great Xia?" Wang Mian turned back, glanced at him, and a gentle smile curved his lips. "Don't worry, Great Xia is fine." Cough, cough. "We fought the Olympian gods all night and have basically gained the upper hand. The heavenly court gods are now guarding Great Xia, and those of us who could be spared came immediately." "Those of us?" Lin Chia was stunned. "Yes, they're right behind me, it's just that I'm faster." Wang Mian coughed a few times, then turned back to face Hela, his yuan blade emitting a slight hum. "No matter how many ants come, they're still just ants," Hela said, her face extremely grim. "Without the gods of Great Xia, what waves can you few make?" The Stygian death energy surged around Hela again, countless bones churning forth as she flickered and charged toward Wang Mian. "Go pull out that sword," Hela shouted to the sky. The Loki-aligned gods suspended in the sky all attacked at once. 5 or 6 streaks of light cut through the clouds, rushing toward Lin Chia who stood guard before the holy rainbow sword. "Light. Balder, god of light, stood beneath the firmament and pointed a finger downward. Countless golden sword shadows condensed around him, like a rain of light swords purifying the world, descending toward the middle section of the Rainbow Bridge. Ding 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 ding. The crisp sound of bells suddenly came from the void behind Lin Chia. A carriage materialized, suddenly floating up to hover above Lin Chia. The scenery around the carriage changed, and an illusory garden full of birdsong and fragrant flowers ignited like a prairie fire in the sky, swallowing the rain of swords, not a single one falling on Lin Chia's head. Master Chen! Lin Chia exclaimed with delight. A green light followed closely behind, circling in the air before finally landing in front of Lin Chia. Zhuo Qing, wearing a dark red cape, slowly walked out. Commander Zhuo? Lin Chia was stunned. You came personally? Of course. Great Xia is protected by its gods, so we don't need to worry about that. I haven't left Great Xia for many years, so this is a good opportunity to get some exercise. Zhuo Qing smiled and patted Lin Chia's shoulder. I knew that even if you couldn't contact me, you would follow the plan and open the door. You did very well, Chia. Commander Zhuo, that walkie-talkie. Last night while fighting the sun god Apollo, I accidentally let him burn the walkie-talkie. Zhuo Qing said helplessly. Lin Chia. But Commander Zhuo, this is Asgard. Lin Chia couldn't help saying. Without the gods of Great Xia, relying just on humanity's sealing, can we succeed? Destroying Asgard in one go would be quite difficult, but we've made thorough preparations this time. At the very least we must kill Loki. But without gods there are no laws. How can we kill Loki? Don't worry, before coming we called 3 Great Xia gods to preside, and besides that... Zhuo Qing's lips curved upward slightly. He turned his head toward the other side of the Rainbow Bridge and raised his chin. Look who's here. Lin Chia followed his gaze, his pupils suddenly contracting. Ding! A clear sword chime came from the misty mountain peak, instantly echoing throughout the entire sky. Sword intent surged to the heavens. With that sword chant erupting, the gods descending from the sky all changed their expressions simultaneously. They suddenly looked up toward the end of the Rainbow Bridge, their faces filled with disbelief. The sword law? Is it him? Countless sword energies exploded from the bridge like a tsunami, instantly tearing the clouds in the sky to pieces. The rain of light swords falling from the sky appeared as fragile as a golden toy before this tsunami of sword energy, shattering inch by inch in the air, disappearing without a trace. The god of light, Balder, seemed to recall something, and his expression immediately turned ugly. At the end of the Rainbow Bridge, in the center of the sword energy tsunami, a young man wearing a black shirt, carrying a sword case on his back, slowly walked forward. Those obsidian glass-like eyes swept over the gods in the sky one by one, slightly narrowing as the surging sword intent seemed to boil and surge through the air. Who dares to hurt my student? His voice wasn't loud, but the countless sword intents in the sky seemed to speak as well, simultaneously emitting a sharp humming sound, carrying his words to every corner of Asgard. Master Sword Saint. Lin Chia looked at that familiar figure, taking a long moment to come back to his senses, his face showing wild joy. Commander Zhuo, how did you find Master Sword Saint? Lin Chia excitedly asked Zhuo Qing. Zhuo Qing smiled bitterly, shrugging his shoulders and said, We didn't find him at all. He came on his own. When we arrived at the entrance to Asgard, he was already there. Lin Chia was stunned. How did he know I was here? He said he encountered Michael in the mist, and it was Michael who told him you were in danger and asked him to come here. Michael? Lin Chia's mind immediately conjured that perfect angelic face. Come to think of it, since they were in heaven and Michael went to hunt down Odin, there had been no news of him. Was Zhou Ping's encounter with him a mere coincidence, or was there some deeper reason? But one thing was certain. Michael already knew they had escaped from hell, otherwise he wouldn't have directed Zhou Ping to Asgard. Zhou Ping seemed to have heard Lin Chia's shout as well, turning his head to look at him, smiling gently. But soon, Zhou Ping's gaze fell on his wounds. He frowned and looked toward Hela, who was battling with Wang Mian not far away. So it was you, Zhou Ping spoke calmly, his palm lightly tapping the surface of the black case behind him. Ding! The crisp sword chant sounded again. A dark golden sword light shot out from the sword case, instantly tearing open a corner of the deep abyss of the underworld, heading straight for Hela's face. Hela's pupils contracted sharply as she rapidly retreated. Countless pale bones surged from the deep pool she passed over, forming one giant hand after another, trying to grab the dark golden longsword wrapped in sword energy. But before they could touch the blade, they were torn to pieces by the sharp sword energy. As the sword edge drew closer in her vision, Hela frowned deeply and simply stopped abruptly. Cold underworld death energy gathered in Hela's palms, condensing into a film less than a millimeter thick. Under this death energy compressed to the extreme, even space began to distort violently. She raised those pitch-black hands and forcefully struck at the approaching sword light. Dense black energy burst forth, and under the grip of her two hands, the dark golden longsword's blade began to vibrate violently. The surging sword energy frantically cut at the underworld film, making a teeth-grinding creaking sound. Terrifying divine power surged from within Hela's body. As her hands continued to exert force, blood seeped from her palms, but similarly the dark golden longsword's speed gradually slowed down, controlled in her grasp. Seeing this, Hela's somewhat pale face revealed a smile. But in the next moment her smile froze on her face. Behind her in the endless underworld at some point, a figure wearing a black shirt had silently appeared at her back. Zhou Ping no longer carried the heavy black sword case on his back. His straight posture was like a sword, standing firm in the depths of the rolling underworld energy. Those obsidian glass-like eyes slowly closed. "Sword rise." He spoke calmly. His right hand raised before his chest, index and middle fingers joined together in a sword gesture, pointing toward Hela's back through the air. Ding! The sword chime exploded. A sword light so fast it reached the extreme surged from Zhou Ping's body, instantly piercing through Hela's chest. Not only that, along the path Zhou Ping pointed, 3 kilometers away, a tall temple seemed to have been cut by an invisible sword, collapsing with a rumble into rolling dust. 5 kilometers away, a minor god of Loki's faction who was rushing over suddenly had his head separated from his neck, thrown high into the sky, blood splashing down, his eyes full of confusion. 12 kilometers away, a mountain peak suddenly shook, rolling dust rising from its waist, the verdant peak sliding down along the smooth cut at the mountainside, falling to the ground with a deep rumble. If viewed from high above, it would seem as if an invisible sword had pierced through a corner of Asgard, cutting everything in its path into two. And at the end of this invisible sword, stood the black-clothed Zhou Ping, fingers forming a sword gesture, standing straight. "You," Hela looked down at her chest at the heart completely shattered by sword energy, her eyes showing shock. Before this she had already suffered 2 nuclear bomb attacks, a wound from the Kusanagi sword and several cuts from Wang Mian. But even so she never thought she would die. She always believed that except for those few extremely powerful chief gods in the world, no one at the same level could kill her. But now Zhou Ping's sword had completely overturned her understanding. "You hurt my student. Pay with your life." Zhou Ping's fingertip lightly traced, and the dark golden long sword instantly cut off Hela's head. It flicked the blood from its edge in midair before slowly falling into his hand. But Hela's corpse fell heavily to the ground. The sword law had completely erased her possibility of resurrection. From now on, Asgard would have no queen of the underworld. Witnessing Hela's death with their own eyes, the gods in the sky showed fury in their eyes. After a low growl, their divine power frantically poured outward. Qin Fuzi, Zui Qing and Wang Mian rushed up to the clouds, about to engage with the gods, when suddenly the wind and clouds changed color. The sky, which still had some daylight, completely darkened. Flying sand swirled in the howling gale, as if thousands of demons were growling deeply. The heavy dark clouds were slowly parted, and the spiritual energy dispersed in the world surged toward a patch of white clouds. In the space of a breath, a giant figure that reached the heavens broke through the clouds and crashed down at the head of the Rainbow Bridge. Endless demonic energy swirled as a giant figure wearing a phoenix-winged purple gold crown and golden chain armor slowly stood up. Those eyes, as dazzling as burning gold, swept indifferently over the gods below before looking in another direction. "Yang Jian, your speed is still slower than mine." The giant figure spoke in a deep voice. "It's just that your divine law of heaven and earth is a bit faster than mine." At the horizon's end, a figure wearing silver armor and wielding a 3-pointed double-edged blade snorted coldly, and a massive divine manifestation suddenly rose from his body. The pale blue spiritual energy rose slowly, intertwining to form a giant shadow no less imposing than the heavenly sage avatar, with a solemn and mysterious vertical pupil slowly opening in the center of its eyes, divine light instantly piercing through the entire sky. Great Sage Sun Wukong, Heavenly Sage Avatar. True Lord Erlang Yongjian, Pure Origin Avatar. One demon, one god, the two strongest avatars of the heavenly court, standing majestically on either side of the rainbow bridge. Great Sage. Jin. Seeing these two familiar figures, Lin Chia exclaimed in surprise. At the feet of the heavenly sage avatar, Sun Wukong, carrying his golden red staff, looked at Lin Chia with a smile curling at the corner of his mouth. We meet again, Chia. Brother. Yang Jian, holding his three-pointed double-edged blade, slowly approached and softly said, We've come to rescue you. Yang Jian, when it comes to speed you've never beaten me. This time let's compete in killing gods. What do you say? Sun Wukong raised his head, his eyes like burning gold, sweeping over the many deities in the sky and spoke calmly. Fine. Yang Jian replied evenly, there are 5 gods here in total, so let's see who can kill more. Boom. With a deafening explosion, the two avatars rose into the air simultaneously, charging toward the 5 Loki system deities in the sky. Brilliant divine light mixed with spiritual power instantly covered the entire gloomy sky. Lin Chia stood on the rainbow bridge as a green light and a carriage descended beside him. Commander Zhui, you've already met the great sage? Lin Chia asked. Yes, Zhui Qing nodded and said, last night if the great sage hadn't descended like divine intervention, catching the Olympian gods off guard, we might not have had the advantage now. When he heard we were coming to rescue you he came immediately and so did Yang Jian. So this time only 2 gods came from Great Xiao? There's also. And this queen, a voice said. Behind Lin Chia, a pair of jade hands reached out from the void, easily tearing open a hideous rift in space, and a beautiful woman wearing a golden-purple divine robe slowly walked out. Queen Mother. Seeing this familiar figure, Lin Chia spoke in surprise. Standing before Lin Chia was none other than the Queen Mother of the West, whom Lin Chia had met several times in Kunlun Void. The Queen Mother nodded, her gaze sweeping over the distant towering Asgard temple, her beautiful eyes narrowing slightly. They're coming, she said calmly. How many? Zhui Qing asked. Within a range of 300 li, there are 3 major gods, 8 minor gods, and more deities continuously arriving, totaling at least 30. Lin Chia was stunned at first but then quickly understood. The sudden restoration of the Rainbow Bridge, the arrival of many human powerhouses in Asgard, plus the 3 incredibly powerful Great Xia major gods, Sun Wukong, Yang Jian and the Queen Mother of the West, had inevitably attracted attention throughout Asgard. Now they faced not only the few Loki system deities currently in battle, but also some Thor system deities as well as many gods from Asgard proper, Giant Country, Dwarf Country and the Underworld. They might not want to get involved in the Divine King dispute between Loki and Thor, but they certainly wouldn't stand by if Asgard were invaded by foreign gods. A golden light streaked across the sky as Heimdall returned and hovered in the air, his gaze sweeping over the battlefield below, his brows tightly furrowed. 3 major gods and some human insects. With just this, you dare to violate my Asgard? One figure after another flew to position behind him, including the war god Tyr, the forest god Vidar, and many deities Lin Chia had never seen before. Their numbers far exceeded Lin Chia's side. Commander Zhuo, what do we do now? Lin Chia couldn't help asking, seeing the vast numerical disparity between the 2 sides. Seeing this, Zhui Qing showed no sign of panic and smiled lightly. Don't worry, Lu Wuwei is already searching for Loki's location. Now we just need to buy time. It doesn't matter that they have more people, we have a secret weapon on our side. Secret weapon? Lin Chia followed Zhui Qing's gaze and saw 2 figures already standing in the air beneath the sky vault. The one on the left wore a brown checkered shirt and a duck-billed cap, with a leisurely and comfortable expression. The one on the right wore a snow-white robe with waterfall-like snow-white hair reaching down to the waist, and in the pupils of the eyes, a pair of cross-shaped stars flickered slightly. Longbai! Lin Chia exclaimed in surprise, seeing Yula Longbai, who was now 2 heads taller than Guanzai. The last time he saw Yulalongbai was when he brought him back to Great Xia and settled him in a safe house. In the blink of half a year he never expected to see him again in the Nordic divine country Asgard. As if hearing Lin Chia's call, Yulalongbai tilted his head and smiled, waving at him. Brother Chia. Seeing this, Lin Chia instinctively waved back. Yulalongbai is the secret weapon? Lin Chia asked Suiqing suspiciously. Why? Longbai's ability is to travel between games and reality, continuously overlapping the two. He can use items, abilities, settings and maps from the game world in the real world, while Guanzai's ability is to digitize the world and program it according to his will. Suiqing spread his hands, a player who can turn games into reality and a programmer who can freely write games. When these two come together, guess what happens? Lin Chia seemed to realize something and looked up at the sky in shock. As the Asgardian gods continued to gather, Guanzai reached out to loosen his collar and smiled at Yulalongbai. Longbai, are you ready? I'm ready. Yulalongbai's snow-white hair fluttered in the wind. Let's begin. Guanzai nodded, his smile growing more intense. Then let them see what it means for games to change the world. As Guanzai raised his fingertip and lightly tapped the air, a loading bar appeared out of nowhere in front of Yulalongbai. Game environment initializing. 1%, 14%, 49%, 81%, 98%, 100%. Game loading complete. Enter the game. Yulalongbai reached out and tapped the yes button. The next moment, an invisible domain rapidly expanded from beneath Yulalongbai, instantly enveloping everything in sight, including half of Asgard. Snap. As Yulalongbai raised his hand and snapped his fingers, the entire world seemed to have its light switch turned off, suddenly plunging into absolute darkness. Several Nordic gods who had just rushed into this invisible domain frowned, filled with confusion. But at that moment in the endless darkness, a pair of cross-shaped starry eyes, like two moons hanging in the sky, slowly opened. Game start. Game start. The next moment, countless strands of emerald code emerged from the void beside him, weaving together to form towering red brick walls that extended infinitely forward and backward, twisting. If viewed from above, one would see these red brick walls instantly covering the entire domain, with countless winding paths intersecting each other, resembling a massive red brick maze. The deities trapped within this space stood scattered across different paths, their expressions somewhat bewildered. At the same time, floating green text appeared in the pitch-black sky. All maze walls cannot be destroyed. Flying is prohibited within the maze. All forms of detection methods are prohibited within the maze. Spatial traversal is prohibited within the maze. Administrator has highest editing privileges. What is this thing? War god Tyr frowned deeply as he saw the floating characters under the dark night sky. Before he could finish speaking, the maze beneath his feet seemed to come alive. The path ahead slowly shifted, and the originally fixed maze routes began to automatically change direction. From above, it looked as if countless giant hands were continuously scrambling the maze layout, making it dizzying. At this moment, more than 200 pathways away from Tyr, a wide maze entrance slowly opened. You can go in now. Guanzai, sitting at the top of the maze, lifted the brim of his baseball cap and smiled. This maze will trap them for at least 10 minutes. During this time I'll control all the maze routes, so don't worry. At the maze entrance, Zhou Ping, carrying his sword case, calmly nodded. I leave it to you. He strode forward, walking directly into the maze entrance. As the maze paths rotated, his figure quickly vanished without a trace. Outside the maze, Suiqing patted Lin Chia's shoulder. You wait out here, don't go in. Guanzai will protect you. Afterward, Shi Wangmu, Suiqing, Wang Mian and Professor Chen entered one after another, similarly disappearing into the maze entrance. The thunderous battles on both sides of the Rainbow Bridge gradually subsided. After slicing off a deity's head with his three-pointed double-edged blade, Yang Jian expressionlessly glanced at Sun Wukong and said flatly, "This time I was faster than you." Humph. Sun Wukong shouldered his golden cudgel and nodded toward the interior of the maze with his chin. There are still so many gods in there. The competition isn't over yet. Good. A silver light gradually ignited in Yang Jian's vertical eye on his forehead. Then let's continue. The two figures, one gold and one silver, crashed into the maze entrance like lightning, instantly vanishing. Above the maze, Guanzai watched as everyone entered the maze, then turned to Yoji Longbai beside him. Longbai, those items I made specially for you, do you still have them? Yoji Longbai nodded. Yes, I have them all. He waved his hand in the void and several light images took shape, falling into his palm. Administrator made necklace. Within the red brick maze you have full map vision. Administrator made ring. Within the red brick maze you can pass through walls at will. Administrator made brooch. Within the red brick maze, you can teleport any designated target to any corner of the maze. Yoji Longbai put on the equipment, resting his right hand on the hilt of his Divine Calamity long sword. His snow-white hair fluttered slightly as his figure flickered and disappeared from the spot. The maze entrance slowly closed. Lin Chia stood in place, watching as more deities in the distance broke into this game domain and were transported into the maze. Concern appeared in his eyes. Guanzai, Yoji Longbai, Zhou Qing, Professor Chen and Wang Mian, 5 human powerhouses, along with Zhou Ping, Shi Wang Mu, Sun Wukong and Yang Jian, 4 major gods, had all gathered here. This already represented the peak fighting force that Great Xia could deploy. Even facing the siege of the Norse gods, they could at least escape unharmed. What he truly worried about was Si Xiaonan. Before Lu Wei could find Loki, Si Xiaonan was alone with Loki, which was undoubtedly extremely dangerous. He wondered if her plan could proceed smoothly. Human circle. Church. Well, you eat it first. The moment Loki said these words, Si Xiaonan at the bottom of the steps immediately changed expression. Lord Loki, I don't understand your meaning. Si Xiaonan took a deep breath and asked in confusion. The immortality pills are Great Xia's secret treasures that I retrieved for you. Weren't you going to use them to reach the supreme level? Why ask me to eat them? Being cautious is never wrong. Loki sat on his divine throne and spoke leisurely. After all, who knows if these 2 pills are really immortality pills? Lord Loki, you don't trust me? Hee hee. Loki chuckled softly. Our little Nan, of course I trust you. But who knows if these pills have been switched by the Great Xia gods? Why don't you try these pills for me first? After the effects take place, I'll use trickery to rewrite reality and return everything to before you swallowed the pills. This way we'll know for certain whether the pills are genuine or fake. Si Xiaonan's pupils suddenly contracted. Loki's slender eyes narrowed slightly. He stood up and slowly walked toward Si Xiaonan. His magnificent church robe swept across the white steps as he gently lifted Si Xiaonan's pale face. His lips approached her ear, whispering like a venomous snake flicking its tongue. Our little Nan is the most obedient and useful servant. You'll definitely help me, right? Loki's voice penetrated Si Xiaonan's mind, making her body tremble uncontrollably. She bit her lips tightly, avoiding Loki's gaze. After a long silence, she finally nodded. I understand. Although Loki's tone seemed gentle, Si Xiaonan knew she had no choice. Even if she didn't voluntarily swallow the pills, Loki would forcibly stuff them into her mouth. Once he decided on something, it could not be changed. Seeing Si Xiaonan nod, Loki's smile grew brighter for a moment before returning to normal. He pointed at the 2 pill containers on the ground with his chin and said flatly, "Eat." Si Xiaonan slowly bent down, picked up the 2 pill containers at her feet, and poured out 1 pill from each, placing them in her palm. Si Xiaonan stared at the 2 pills, took a deep breath and swallowed both at once. After confirming she had truly taken the pills, Loki leisurely returned to his divine throne, sat down, propped his chin with one hand, and watched Si Xiaonan at the bottom of the steps with great interest. The entire church fell into dead silence. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The amber sunlight shone through the colorful windows, casting glass-like light on Si Xiaonan. She clenched her fists tightly, her teeth biting hard on her lips, as streaks of fresh blood trickled down her chin and dripped to the ground. 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 7 seconds. Time passed second by second. After who knows how long, Si Xiaonan's paper-white face finally contorted violently in agony. Black blood flowed from her 7 orifices. She groaned in pain, staggered forward, but had no strength to support herself and collapsed to the ground. Si Xiaonan dug her fingers into the white floor with all her strength, blood filling the cracks between her fingers. Her entire body twisted like a contorted insect, wailing in agony on the ground. Loki, she gritted her teeth, forcing a few words through her clenched jaw. Before she could finish, a mouthful of black blood rolled up from her throat, splattering onto the pristine white floor. Loki narrowed his eyes as he watched Si Xiaonan suffering below, his face expressionless, showing no intention of getting up. Loki. Si Xiaonan growled indistinctly, sprawled on the ground. The low voice echoed throughout the spacious church. Sitting on the divine throne, Loki sighed deeply and slowly spoke. From the beginning you should never have betrayed me. Xiaonan. I didn't betray. This was Dixia. This was Dixia, God's conspiracy? They switched the immortality pill. Loki sneered. My dear Xiaonan, did you really think I would believe such nonsense? Si Xiaonan lay in the black pool of blood, her blood-red eyes fixed intently on Loki sitting on the divine throne. Dixia had no idea I would infiltrate Kunlun Void, and even sending you to steal the immortality pill was my spontaneous decision. How could they possibly have switched it in advance? Besides, if they really did make the switch, then what is it that you've hidden in the wound on your back? As Loki's words fell, his figure instantly vanished from the divine throne, reappearing behind Si Xiaonan. His long, pale hand violently pierced into Si Xiaonan's back. Amidst the splashing blood, his fingertips exerted force, and in the next moment he extracted 2 pills wrapped in gauze from the bloody flesh. Si Xiaonan's agonized wails instantly filled the entire church. Loki held the 2 blood-stained gauze bundles between his fingertips, glanced at Si Xiaonan in the pool of blood and spoke calmly. Did you think you could deceive my perception with yuanless gauze? Did you think hiding them in your wound would prevent me from discovering them? This technique is just as naively laughable as when you tricked me with the fake Shiva's grudge. Si Xiaonan's gaze froze as she painfully turned her head to look at Loki standing beside her. She gritted her teeth and spoke. You knew all along? Loki's lips curled slightly upward. He reached out to grab Si Xiaonan's blood-soaked hair, lifting her head from the pool of blood. Looking into her eyes, he spoke deliberately. Xiaonan, do you even know why I, Loki, am the god of mischief? Do you know what it means to be the god of mischief? Your tricks are decent, but compared to mine they're still too clumsy. That's why you're destined to be merely a proxy, never becoming the god of mischief. Loki released his grip, and Si Xiaonan's head crashed heavily onto the floor, instantly creating a bloody wound. Then why did you? Why did I still keep you by my side? Loki chuckled. Even the god of mischief needs someone for amusement, doesn't he? Sound, you have great talent. Many years ago I knew you were my best candidate for a proxy. I was curious. With your talent, your patience, your ruthlessness, and your hatred for me, what kind of scheme would you eventually weave to try to kill me? These past 2 years I kept you by my side, had you work for me, sent you to steal the immortality pill, just to see what kind of answer you would ultimately give me. Loki paused for a moment, glancing at the 2 immortality pills in his hand. But unfortunately the answer you gave disappoints me. Loki turned and walked up the steps, removing the yuanless gauze, covering the 2 pills. He held them between his fingertips, slowly bringing them to his lips. Just then he halted his steps. He turned back to see Si Xiaonan, writhing in agony in the pool of blood, staring at him intently as if she wanted to tear him to pieces. Loki slowly lowered the 2 pills he had raised to his mouth. A smile curled at the corner of his lips. You don't think that by using your own suffering as the price, you could trick me into directly swallowing these 2 pills? If that were the case, then your answer would actually be somewhat interesting. Si Xiaonan nearly crushed her teeth. As her face visibly turned ashen, she spoke in a low voice. You're overthinking it. Am I? Loki raised his hand and snapped his fingers lightly. The mischief threads he had set up flashed across the church, and Si Xiaonan, who had been struggling in the pool of blood, suddenly stood back in the center of the hall. The black blood flowing from her 7 orifices disappeared, and she, who had been on the verge of death, returned to her initial state at the bottom of the steps. Her previously torn and mangled back was also restored. In the end, Loki still rewrote everything that had happened, catching the last second before the mischief took effect. Si Xiaonan still held those 2 poisonous pills in her hand, having not swallowed them, and thus the poison had not taken effect. Even though the poison was gone, Si Xiaonan's face remained deathly pale. The fingers holding the 2 pills trembled slightly, as if she hadn't yet recovered from the intense pain. Bang! Loki's figure flashed behind Si Xiaonan. A splash of blood bloomed as his fingertips once again cut into Si Xiaonan's skin, retrieving the 2 pills wrapped in yuanless gauze. Si Xiaonan instinctively opened her mouth from the intense pain. Loki removed the yuanless gauze from his hand, flicked his fingers, and 2 dark shadows fell into her throat, sliding down her esophagus into her stomach. Cough, cough, cough. Si Xiaonan clutched her throat, coughing violently. Loki had forced her to swallow the 2 pills he had extracted from the wound in her back. Until he confirmed these were the real pills, Loki wouldn't risk himself. The reason he saved Si Xiaonan from being poisoned to death was to use her as a guinea pig a second time. Forced to swallow these 2 pills, Si Xiaonan's face turned extremely ugly. She clenched her teeth, a fierce look flashing in her eyes. A short dagger slid from her sleeve into her palm, and she violently stabbed toward Loki's back. Seeing this, Loki's eyes flashed with disdain. You're too naive, Xiaonan. Loki's figure shifted and he directly flashed behind Si Xiaonan, grabbing her wrist with one hand, immobilizing her completely. Just stay put until I test whether the pills are real or not. As Loki's words fell, countless black snakes emerged from beneath the tall, sacred divine throne, continuously coiling around the motionless Si Xiaonan. Like a black snake crucifix, they dragged her up from the ground, suspending her before Loki. Si Xiaonan's body was locked by the black snakes, unable to move an inch. Her eyes fixed intently on Loki before her, not concealing her killing intent in the slightest. Loki wasn't angered. He simply stood silently in place, waiting for the final answer. After about 40 seconds, Si Xiaonan's pupils suddenly contracted. After a muffled groan, her entire aura began to rise at an alarming rate. Huh. Sensing the change in energy within Si Xiaonan, Loki raised an eyebrow. Si Xiaonan's eyes visibly brightened, and her Klein peak-level spiritual power began to rapidly climb. In just 2 seconds she had already stepped halfway through the threshold of humanity's sealing realm, and was still increasing at an astonishing speed. Si Xiaonan's gaze sharpened, and her surging spiritual power instantly broke free from the black snakes restraining her. A trick flashed in her palm, and the short sword she had been holding suddenly disappeared. The next moment, the blade was already in front of Loki's face. Loki coldly snorted, showing no intention of dodging. He merely looked coldly at Si Xiaonan and snapped his fingers. Countless black threads interwove, the trick was fooled and everything was rewritten again. The short sword that was about to touch his eyeball vanished into thin air. Si Xiaonan, whose realm had been climbing frantically, showed unwillingness on her face, and in the next moment she was back at her original position at the bottom of the steps. Her realm also returned to the Klein level from before she had swallowed the 2 pills. Loki stood on the steps, looking at Si Xiaonan's angry face, his lips curling upward uncontrollably. So it was a real pill. It seems I overestimated you after all. Loki lightly raised his fingertip and countless black snakes once again suspended Si Xiaonan in midair. His fingertip cut open the flesh on Si Xiaonan's back, extracting the 2 pills wrapped in moon gauze. Loki! Si Xiaonan roared with reddened eyes. You think breaking through to the supreme level means you can rule everything? You will never defeat Xia. Loki, holding the 2 pills, unhurriedly walked up the steps, sat back on the towering divine throne and chuckled. My dear Xiaonan, haven't you understood the current situation yet? Never mind. After I ascend to the supreme level, I'll let you witness with your own eyes how Xia is led step by step toward destruction by me. Loki opened his mouth, swallowed the 2 pills and then slowly closed his eyes. Si Xiaonan was bound by countless snakes, her lips tightly pressed together, her face full of anger and unwillingness. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Loki's magnificent teaching robe gleamed in the opalescent light. As time slowly passed, there was still no change within his body. By the time it reached when the drug had taken effect on Si Xiaonan earlier, Loki still hadn't noticed any effect. His brow furrowed slightly. Perhaps the pill worked more slowly on gods? 40 seconds, 50 seconds. As the time approached 1 minute, still no effect had occurred. Loki suddenly opened his eyes. For some reason he had a vague sense of foreboding. No, impossible. Xiaonan had just taken them, and not only had she not been poisoned, but her realm had rapidly climbed. While Loki was deep in thought, Si Xiaonan, who had been angrily suspended in midair by the black snakes, suddenly calmed down. She quietly looked at Loki on the divine throne, the corner of her mouth imperceptibly curling upward as if smiling. Her change in expression was completely seen by Loki. He frowned deeply and opened his mouth to say something, when an unprecedented intense pain suddenly erupted from all over his body. Poof! Loki violently spat out a mouthful of pale green blood, his face instantly turning deathly pale. He looked down at his body in shock. A strange black light was frantically coursing through his body. His divine power began to recede at an alarming rate, as if something inside was continuously gnawing at his flesh. The excruciating pain made his body tremble uncontrollably. How is this possible? Loki's eyes were filled with disbelief. He gritted his teeth and shakily stood up from the divine throne. Those eyes, with their gradually receding whites, stared fixedly at Si Xiaonan bound by the countless snakes. What did you do? Si Xiaonan didn't speak, just smiled quietly, gazing at him. Countless black threads emerged from around Loki, quickly forming a trick in the air. With a flash of light, his form returned to the divine throne. He had rewritten everything to 40 seconds earlier, which was the maximum time limit his trick could deceive. But even so, he had already swallowed the 2 pills. Without another word, he violently thrust his right hand through his own abdomen, his fingertips stirring inside, seemingly trying to dig out the 2 pills from his stomach. Loki's face was deathly pale. Give up, Si Xiaonan said unhurriedly upon seeing this. Your trick, even with preparation, can only rewrite history up to 42 seconds ago. When you activated your trick, just now 107 seconds had already passed since you swallowed the pills, meaning no matter how you rewrite, you can only go back to the 65th second after swallowing the pills. By that time, the pixel isolation layer covering the poison god pill had completely dissolved, and the poison god pill had already been absorbed by your body. Even if you drain all your blood now, you can't stop the poison from taking effect. The moment Si Xiaonan finished speaking, Loki violently spat out another mouthful of pale green blood, his divine power once again receding at an alarming rate. He supported himself on the armrests of the divine throne, slowly standing up, his eyes filled with anger as he looked at Si Xiaonan. It was you? You planned this all along. No one understands you better than I do, Loki, Si Xiaonan calmly replied. You wouldn't easily trust anyone, including me, especially in something as important as breaking through to the supreme level. So, you would naturally want to control every step yourself, including verifying the authenticity of the immortality pill. This game of real and fake pills was the trick I carefully prepared for you. Loki's frown deepened. He shook his head. But you also ate those 2 pills. Why weren't you affected and instead experienced a realm increase? When did you switch the pills? I never switched the pills. The 2 you ate and the 2 I ate are exactly the same, Si Xiaonan's voice echoed in the spacious cathedral. However, to time your trick perfectly, I specifically had Genian help me cover the poison god pill with a molecular-level pixel isolation layer. The isolation layer can be digested by the human body, and its thickness was precisely calculated. From swallowing the poison god pill to the body beginning to absorb the poison, there would be a buffer period of 45 seconds, exactly 3 seconds longer than your trick could affect. As long as I acted out the effects of a real immortality pill before then, you would naturally believe it, actively use your trick to take out this pill for me and eat it yourself. As for how I simulated the realm-increasing effect to gain your trust. Si Xiaonan smiled and gently opened her mouth. As her tongue brushed against the gap between one of her teeth, a silver needle automatically ejected from the gap. This silver needle was one of the 3 treasures of Desia's Night Watchers. The ghost god lure. Seeing this scene, Loki, with blood flowing from his 7 orifices, remained silent for a moment, then suddenly began to laugh eerily. Very good. I take back my previous assessment of you. This is how my agent should behave. His divine power fell from godhood, and his physical body began to rot into liquid at a visible speed. The poison god pill, personally bestowed upon Si Xiaonan by the Queen Mother of the West, was the #1 poison of Kunlun Void. Even if a major god like Loki swallowed it, he still couldn't survive. Although this poison pill contained no laws and couldn't truly kill Loki in the real sense, once his body rotted into water and the poison corroded his soul, it would truly be a fate worse than death. His magnificent teaching robe was soaked with black blood, revealing madness and eeriness amidst the divine. Standing on the stairs of light, even though his features were twisted in pain, his smile grew increasingly radiant, looking extremely ferocious. Sishaun, this round you win. Loki suddenly raised his dissolving right palm and smashed it against his own forehead. With a muffled sound on the holy stairs of light, Loki's head exploded. He had actively shattered his own body, ending himself before the poison could infiltrate his soul. A corpse emitting a foul stench fell rigidly down the stairs to Xiaonan's feet, dissolving into a pool of dark green liquid within a breath. The countless black snakes wrapped around Xiaonan lost their vitality and fell to the ground one after another. She staggered in the pool of blood and liquid, stepping back several times before stabilizing herself. Loki's death didn't bring her any relief. Her eyes showed not the slightest hint of joy, but remained as calm as a bottomless ancient pond. Xiaonan took a deep breath and carefully searched through the sticky blood on the ground. Soon she seemed to discover something, pinching a pill from the blood with her fingertips and slowly raising it. It was one of the 2 pills she had given to Loki at the beginning, the one Loki believed to be the poison pill. Xiaonan lightly rubbed the surface of the pill with her fingertips, and a pixel isolation layer slid off, revealing the immaculately white surface of the pill beneath. This was the immortality pill. Loki could never have imagined that the immortality pill he had been desperately seeking for so long had been handed to him by Xiaonan right from the start. At the beginning, the 2 pill bottles Xiaonan gave to Loki contained this immortality pill, wrapped in a pixel isolation layer, and another soul-devouring poison pill that she had brought from the pill palace. When Loki first made Xiaonan swallow a pill, what caused her poisoning was that soul-devouring poison pill. As for the immortality pill, wrapped in a pixel isolation layer, it hadn't completely dissolved. After Loki used trickery to rewrite history, these 2 pills were labeled as poison pills by Loki and ignored. Xiaonan's second pill swallowing involved a pill she made herself with no medicinal effect, and another poison god pill, wrapped in a pixel isolation layer. It was these 2 pills that deceived the cunning and suspicious Loki, forcing him to commit suicide to survive. Xiaonan had given the real immortality pill to Loki right from the start. Although risky, this was the only way to avoid Loki's perception, because no matter where she hid it on her body, Loki would find it, just as he had broken open Xiaonan's wound to retrieve that poison god pill. In the end, what Xiaonan exploited was Loki's caution and suspicion. Xiaonan put away the immortality pill and looked out the church window as if searching for something. She knew clearly that even though she had forced Loki to die here using trickery, things were far from over. Whoosh! Suddenly, in the distant sky, a shining flare shot up. Over there, Xiaonan's expression tensed as she flew out of the church like lightning, rushing toward the direction where the flare had been launched. Human Circle. Eastern side. Bai Li Pangpang looked at the high pile of putrid corpses inside the slaughterhouse before him, his fists clenching uncontrollably. Loki, that beast. Bai Li Pangpang's eyes were bloodshot as he growled in a low voice. He didn't even spare children and pregnant women. Is he even human? Chao Yuan stood silently beside him, his gaze sweeping the surroundings. Judging by the numbers, it should be as Cold Xian said, 10,000 people, exchanged for one trickery of substitutional death. They've probably been dead for a day. The knight walked to one of the corpses, frowned as he examined it briefly, then sighed deeply. If we had arrived a little earlier, we might have prevented all this. Cold Xian said there are 2 more mass graves like this? Bai Li Pangpang seemed to recall something. Yes, Loki has always been cautious. At the critical moment of challenging the Supreme, he would definitely leave several backup plans. The knight nodded. Although according to Cold Xian he can only use the substitutional death, trickery, once in a short period, doing this greatly reduces the chance of his resurrection location being exposed. 3 mass graves, 3 locations for substitutional resurrection. No one knows at which grave he will resurrect after his death. He killed 30,000 people just to leave a few escape routes? Bai Li Pangpang's eyes were filled with anger as he cursed. Damn it, he'd better resurrect at our mass grave. I want to wring that beast's neck with my own hands. Just the few of us probably won't be enough. Chao Yuan shook his head. Although we have 4 envoys stationed here, we can barely hold Loki back, let alone kill him. If Loki really comes, we should fire the flare immediately. How's the mass grave on the west side? Qing Yu, Jiang Air and other upper evil members are there. Everything has been arranged, but... Chao Yuan paused. Cold Xian is still looking for the location of the 3rd mass grave. It's hidden too well. Just him alone? Just him alone. What if he encounters Loki? He said he can handle it. If I remember correctly, this Cold Xian and that Si Xiaonan both came from Tsangnan, just like 7 Knights? And Wu Xiangnan, who died in Japan too. Bai Li Pangpang couldn't help but sigh. Is Tsangnan a place that produces freaks? Chao Yuan was silent for a moment, then shook his head. They're not freaks. They're just ordinary people holding on to their own beliefs. That's true. Before Bai Li Pangpang could finish speaking, a dazzling flare shot straight into the clouds with a sharp whistling sound from the northern sky. Seeing this flare, everyone's expression changed. It's from the north. Not from Qingyu's location. Chao Yuan muttered. Is it Cold Xian? 2 minutes ago. Human Circle, north side. A figure carrying a heavy black box was racing through the vast desert. Large beads of sweat slid down Leng Xian's face, and flying sand stuck to his eyelashes, forcing his eyes to squint, but even so his pace didn't slow down in the slightest. This old fox, Leng Xian muttered. During this time, Leng Xian had been searching the Human Circle for the locations of the mass graves arranged by Loki. Even after capturing almost all church bishops and interrogating them extensively, he had only found the locations of 2 mass graves. According to Leng Xian's count, out of the original population of about 40,000 in the city-state, only a scattered 10,000 people remained alive, which meant that 10,000 people had vanished without a trace. Leng Xian could guess that Loki, not trusting these church bishops, had secretly taken away 10,000 people after having them complete 2 burial sites, and had secretly arranged a 3rd mass grave. After searching almost every corner of the Human Circle, Leng Xian finally found some clues at the edge of the desert on the north side. As Leng Xian continued forward, several dark spots appeared faintly at the end of the desert. He raised his binoculars and saw the remains of a stone city nearly buried by yellow sand, standing tall amidst the howling wind and sand, desolate yet magnificent. Found it. The abandoned stone city. Black ravens circled above the ruins buried in yellow sand, their piercing cries seemingly tearing through one's eardrums. Countless rotting corpses were piled high like small mountains, with stench and the smell of blood permeating every corner of the stone city. At the top of this mountain of corpses, the body of a 4 or 5-year-old boy, already disfigured by ravens, suddenly rolled down from the peak as a cold wind swept by, exposing a blood-stained strange stone platform. Mysterious black threads etched a complex pattern at the top of the corpse mountain. In the howling wind, these patterns gradually lit up, and an eerie, sinister aura spread throughout the stone city. Black threads extended from the patterns, frantically devouring the flesh and blood from the surrounding corpses. The pile of over 10,000 corpses visibly shriveled, and simultaneously, the form of a man rapidly took shape out of nothingness above the corpse mountain. Heat waves rolled and the mountain of corpses turned to dust and disappeared in an instant. The figure emerging from nothingness had already been restored by more than half. Loki's pale face was filled with coldness and cruelty, his eyes sweeping with murderous intent as he muttered. Xiaonan, he. His upper body was fully restored and countless threads began to weave his legs. Just as he was about to float to the ground, something unexpected happened. A dazzling red flare whistled into the sky and tens of kilometers away from Loki, a figure pulled a trigger. Bang! A thunderous explosion erupted at the edge of the stone city ruins. A deep, dark bullet pierced through space, flashing from tens of kilometers away to Loki's face in an instant, with surging divine power bursting from the bullet head. With the bullet as its center, the space within 100 meters was torn apart, creating an extremely thin and sharp vortex that instantly ground the surrounding yellow sand and ruins into powder. And at the sharpest end of the vortex was Loki. Loki's pupils suddenly contracted. The bullet was too fast, and he, whose resurrection was not yet complete, had no time to mobilize his divine power to weave his tricks. The bullet tore through space, whistling past Loki's incomplete body, forcibly creating a huge hole in his body that had been restored to the knees. All the flesh below his neck was instantly turned into a bloody mist, dissipating in midair. Loki, with only a head remaining, glared angrily toward a certain direction in the sand-swept stone city. "You," he growled. Tens of kilometers away, a dark red heavy sniper rifle weighing 200 Jin was set up like a battery on top of the highest ruin. The divine power glow on its surface was receding like the tide. From the black muzzle, pungent hot red smoke slowly rose. Click. The bolt was pulled and a dark gold shell was ejected high from the hot barrel. The smooth shell reflected a calm, cold face in the sunlight, buried behind the sniper scope, motionless like a stone statue. With a soft rustle, the shell sank into the thick sand, its scorching surface emitting wisps of white smoke. "What you—" "Loki." Lung Xian's finger hooked the trigger, staring at the incomplete figure locked in his sniper scope, muttering to himself. Loki, with only a head left, hovered in midair, his eyes fixed on Lung Xian's direction. Strands of flesh gradually materialized from nothingness, slowly rebuilding his body. The sniper rifle, crafted by the god of Forge, fired bullets equivalent to main god-level divine artifacts, but they didn't contain any laws. Even though they could shatter Loki's body, they couldn't kill him. Loki's recovery was just a matter of time. "No wonder there's been no news of you for so long. So you've been hiding in the human circle all this time?" Loki spoke coldly. "Are you also part of Si Xiaonan's plan?" Loki's voice wasn't loud, but it seemed to penetrate space, clearly reaching Lung Xian's ears. Lung Xian didn't answer. His eyes narrowed slightly as he pulled the trigger again. Bang! The thunderous gunshot exploded, and the next moment Loki's half-restored body shattered again, along with the trick threads he was secretly weaving behind him, turning into fragments scattered on the yellow sand. Seeing his trick exposed by Lung Xian, anger appeared on Loki's face. "Lung Xian, do you really think this can change anything? With that gun you can't kill me. If I'm not mistaken, you only have 7 bullets in total? After these bullets are used up, what else can you use to stop me?" Lung Xian pulled the bolt, ejecting another hot shell, and expressionlessly put his eye to the scope, watching Loki's every move. He could see Loki's body gradually returning to normal. His finger slowly applied pressure on the trigger, but he didn't fire the third bullet. Loki was right. He only had 7 bullets in total, so he had to carefully control the interval between each shot, ensuring Loki couldn't fully repair his body while dragging out time as much as possible. Loki's flesh formed half a body again. A cruel look flashed in his eyes, and instead of weaving another trick, he directly propelled his half-complete body, lunging toward the distant Lung Xian like a ferocious ghost. Seeing Loki actively lunging toward him, Cold Xian frowned. He clearly understood that Loki had thoroughly grasped the situation he was facing. For Cold Xian, the only things limiting Loki were that sniper rifle and the mere 5 bullets remaining. Loki abandoned his tricks and charged directly at him with half a broken body, aiming to force him to increase his firing rate. If Cold Xian wanted to prevent Loki from getting close, he would have to shoot early, but in doing so the time these few bullets could buy would be drastically reduced. Should he fire to stop Loki's approach or choose patience, risking close combat to maximize the effectiveness of each bullet? With just this one move, Cold Xian, who originally held the initiative, was forced into a defensive position. Cold Xian's finger hesitated on the trigger for a moment, but ultimately didn't pull it. He remained motionless, lying prone at the top of the tower, closely watching Loki's approaching figure. Rather than quickly using up all his bullets and facing certain death, Cold Xian chose to take a risk. He took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, and watched through the scope as Loki rapidly closed the distance between them. 30 kilometers, 20 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 5 kilometers, 3 kilometers. As time passed, Loki's form gradually restored. When he was less than 2 kilometers away from Cold Xian, a cold gleam flashed in Cold Xian's eyes, and he suddenly pulled the trigger. The thunderous gunshot exploded beside Cold Xian's ears, with 2 streams of blood slowly flowing from his ear canals. A bullet whistled through the air, blasting Loki's mid-air form into fragments that splattered in all directions. After firing, Cold Xian didn't hesitate for a moment. He immediately grabbed the sniper rifle, turned and leaped from the towering building ruins, rolled half a turn in the thick yellow sand, quickly got up and darted through the stone city ruins. This shot once again shattered Loki's body, forcing him to rebuild from scratch, and Cold Xian used this opportunity to quickly distance himself, seeking the next suitable sniping position. But Cold Xian was ultimately just a human without forbidden powers. Even with his strong physical condition, he couldn't run too far carrying a heavy sniper rifle. After barely creating a distance of over 1 kilometer, Loki's head had already mostly regenerated, and with a flicker of movement he rushed toward Cold Xian like a demon. Cold Xian breathed heavily as he navigated through the complex terrain of ruins. He glanced behind him, his left hand reaching to the mobile arsenal at his waist, and 3 special grenades appeared in his grasp. He bit off the pins and threw the 3 grenades nearby. Gray-blue smoke erupted, instantly engulfing half the ancient city ruins. These grenades, also crafted by the god of Forge, had no killing power but could temporarily interfere with divine and psychic perception. During the past few years in the mist, Cold Xian and Si Xiaonan had escaped death countless times thanks to these grenades. It wasn't just Si Xiaonan who had made thorough preparations to kill Loki. Cold Xian had done the same. Killing Loki was nearly impossible. To completely eliminate any chance of Loki's resurrection, they had to act separately, one poisoning Loki in Asgard, the other guarding the corpse and buying time at the Human Circle burial ground. Fighting the god of mischief to the death required complete preparation. If any part of the plan failed, it would mean utter doom. The gray-blue smoke swallowed Cold Xian's figure. Loki temporarily lost sight of his target and frowned deeply. It seems that old fellow made quite a few treasures for you. I'm curious what price you paid to make him help you so diligently. His voice echoed through the gray-blue smoke. Cold Xian didn't respond. What answered was another thunderous gunshot. A bullet from an unknown direction once again shattered Loki's form, turning him into a mist of blood that dispersed. Found you. Loki, with half his head restored, quickly located Cold Xian's general position based on the gunshot and shot forward like a beam of light. This time Cold Xian had nowhere to escape. The gray-blue mist was broken by Loki, who now had only a head left. His gaze quickly locked onto Cold Xian hiding behind a broken wall. His mouth opened and countless black snakes emerged from his throat like giant hands crashing down. At this point Cold Xian had stretched his delaying tactics to the limit. He had no choice but to shoot. He had no time to set up the heavy sniper rifle. Gritting his teeth, he held the gun with both hands as if embracing a heavy cannon, aimed at the black snake hands above and pulled the trigger. Bang! The 5th dark golden bullet shot out, the distorted space instantly tearing all the black snakes to pieces. This beam of light precisely penetrated Loki's throat, shattering his remaining head into countless fragments. At the same time, the terrifying recoil of the rifle without the ground to absorb it, instantly turned Cold Xian's left shoulder into a bloody mist. He was thrown backward, crashing heavily against a protruding boulder. Cold Xian violently coughed up blood, his face as white as paper. The excruciating pain contorted his features and even his consciousness became hazy. He bit his tongue hard, barely maintaining awareness, and staggered to his feet, stumbling toward the heavy sniper rifle that had fallen not far away. At this moment Loki's head was rapidly reconstructing under the weaving of black threads, also flying toward the heavy sniper rifle in front of Cold Xian. In the gray-blue mist, a one-armed man and a floating head raced toward the heavy sniper rifle in the center. Cold Xian bit down hard, breaking the revival pill hidden in his mouth. A cooling sensation instantly flooded his mind. This revival pill, obtained from the god of Forge, could temporarily make one forget pain and unleash astonishing strength and speed. The unprecedented clarity made him temporarily forget the pain in his body. With a sudden roll, he grabbed the sniper rifle handle a step ahead. He let out a low roar, raised the heavy rifle again, and pressed the black barrel against Loki's forehead, who arrived a step too late. Loki's eyes slightly contracted. Go to hell. Cold Xian rarely cursed as he pulled the trigger hard. The 6th bullet fired, instantly exploding Loki's head into fine blood droplets that splattered on Cold Xian's black clothes, making him look like a man covered in blood. The recoil instantly collapsed his bones. He groaned and once again was thrown backward. He crashed heavily onto the yellow sand, his severed arm continuously seeping blood, turning the sand beneath him crimson. He coughed painfully, trying to get up from the ground but had nothing to push against. His arm on this side, transplanted from the remains of Jormungandr of Midgard, didn't shatter even after enduring one recoil, but it had temporarily lost all feeling, making it impossible to lift the heavy sniper rifle again. And now only one bullet remained in the rifle chamber. He had completely lost the ability to continue fighting. But Loki hadn't. In the void before him, strands of law reconstructed Loki's body. His head floated in the air, looking down at cold Shen lying in a pool of blood below, with a cold smile curling at his lips. Now where can you run?